it's a really good question and quite
Yeah,
a big one as well. I think one of the things that schools get wrong is not touching it,
not
not
touching it.
not really going anywhere near it.
Yeah,
Um, so I've spoken in schools where I've
yeah,
spoken to the teachers a bit, and um, I've had the teachers say, the students, they're not a problem, the teachers, they're not a problem, but a lot of the parents don't like that this topic is spoken about in schools.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
think for that reason, a lot of schools kind of steer clear of it. They don't want any controversy.
yeah, yeah,
Um, but teaching people that about pride and about inclusion just generally,
yeah,
it's not indoctrination. It's not going to suddenly convince someone, oh, well, I'll just go and do this, because it has to be very deeply felt and it has to
yeah,
be
yeah,
something you're very committed to.
yeah,
Um, I think by not talking about diversity, inclusion, LGBTQ plus stuff
yeah,
in particular,
yeah,
you're kind of you're sending the message that it's okay to
yeah,
be ignorant about it, and it's
yeah,
okay to not be an inclusive person.
yeah,
It's okay to exclude people.
yeah,
And you're also allowing the other people in the room who maybe do feel a little bit different.
yeah,
You're telling them that this isn't an environment where I
yeah,
can actually be open and be myself, and
yeah,
no one's had any education, so they're not going to support me.
yeah, yeah. So you believe that, there's but topics, are not being touched upon to begin with. Let's, talk. I mean, getting into understanding, having a deeper understanding is a faraway thing. But the first thing is that, it needs to be basically, and I 100% agree that it needs to be, what do you call it, installed in the education system,
Agreed. Yeah.
to make an impact, to make a real impact, because that is where, that is the first step. Any kid, who is going to school, or I think that is the first step that they needs to. That, yeah, I think, that is there. I mean, it should start, from schools
Hmm.
itself,
Yeah.
because that is the first step as a society.
Oh, for sure, for
Mm.
sure. It's if we
Yeah,
start talking about these things when people are younger,
yeah,
just showing people that there are different ways to be yourself and that that's okay,
yeah,
and there are people around you who are going to be different to you, and that's okay.
yeah,
Then
yeah,
I'd like to think that if we started doing that on a bigger scale, we wouldn't be getting to the same sort of points we're at now,
yeah, yeah,
where there's so much hostility.
yeah,
Like, no one can be happy with the way all this
yeah,
anti-LGBTQ plus stuff is playing
yeah,
out, because
yeah,
on one side of things are people who are really angry, and on
yeah,
the other side are people really scared. I
scared,
don't
yeah,
understand how that's beneficial to anyone. So if we can start educating from a younger age, just that,
yeah,
tolerance is a good thing, and there are so many different ways to live your life, and that's fine,
yeah,
then hopefully we wouldn't get to the point where people have
yeah,
to be angry or scared.
yeah. And I think education is a system
Hmm.
that should support, especially encourage, I think, it should, it is not something, needs to have, but, a must have, where, they are, basically teaching students that, we, as a society, we have all sort of, we all we have all sort of people, we have to basically hold spaces,
Hmm.
for especially people who we think that, they are not like us,
Yeah.
who we think, by the way, that is also the question that is I'm trying to, enforce, that who we think that we are not like us. But
Hmm.
I think, there should be, yeah, they should, hold space, that should, something, it should be taught in
Yeah.
school, and it should be mandatory.
Yeah.
I
Agreed. I
I
think.
100%, agree with, what, with basically being LGBTQ plus, education
Yeah.
installed in the education
Hmm.
system.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is the, yeah,
It's
where,
just
the change begins.
it's beneficial for everyone, because
Yeah,
you're gonna, even if you're in a school, or if you're in any sort of one environment for a long time, and
yeah,
actually, yeah, maybe the people around you are really, really similar to you. Once
yeah,
you get out of that environment and you get
yeah,
into maybe a university or a
yeah,
college or a
yeah,
workplace or
yeah,
whatever that might be, a community, a new place in the country where you live,
yeah,
if you're not used to being around other people, then
yeah,
you're going to struggle more. You're not going to be your best self. You're not going to bring out the best in the people around
yeah,
you. And I don't. I don't see how it helps anyone
Yeah,
to not
true.
to not be used to being around different types
No,
of people.
yeah, true, true. No, I 100% agree. I 100% agree. And do you think that, uh, even, some universities or, some schools, they have started doing it like, have they, are there universities, who are basically making it mandatory to basically educate on this topic? Or do you think that, there is none that, where, like, or do you
Um,
think that there are there universities or schools who are doing it, or there are none like?
mhm. I think I'm not sure about unis.
Mhm.
I think because a lot of sort of student university activity is kind of student led, so I
Yeah,
guess there are probably LGBT
yeah, yeah, yeah,
societies in most unis, but
yeah,
um, I imagine most, a lot probably
yeah,
don't. They might not drive a lot of the work themselves, but
yeah,
in terms of schools, because obviously I go in and speak in schools
yeah,
whenever I can, and colleges as well. I think it's definitely not.
yeah,
You can basically see that the schools that put
yeah,
in the work.
yeah, yeah,
It's one of the first talks I did was actually in a primary school, and they did it
yeah,
for Pride Month,
yeah,
June,
yeah,
and they were doing a whole week's worth of pride-based activities, and me coming in as a speaker was one of those activities.
yeah,
They
yeah,
were putting in the work to make sure people knew that
yeah,
it was an
yeah,
accepting environment.
yeah, yeah,
But I think there's just probably this is partly the problem as well, is that there's just going to be this massive divide between the schools that are putting in the work because they
yeah,
can see how positive and beneficial it is, and
yeah,
then the schools who are sort of burying their heads in the sand and
yeah, 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 yeah,
allowing people
yeah,
to go through school
yeah,
without any of that really.
yeah.
Yeah.
True that. True that.
Mhm.
And also, yeah, I mean, great, for schools who are doing it because they are making a positive impact.
Yeah.
Uh, but I think, like you said, that, in June, you get invited. Do you think that there is a possibility that it's more of a checklist
Yeah.
because then to basically uh, practice it
Mhm.
on a
Yeah.
day-to-day basis as an educational institution,
Yeah.
then to have a check mark. Okay, June, we are going to do this.
Yeah. We'll do the Pride Month thing and
Yeah, yeah,
touch it ever again.
yeah,
Yeah, that is the concern, and it's not just with Pride. I suppose it's things like Black History Month or
yeah,
any disability awareness events, things like that. It's
yeah,
it's it's great that you're putting something in place for that period of time, but if
yeah,
you don't sort of practice that throughout the year, if you
yeah,
have one
yeah,
Pride speaker in for the whole year, but then
yeah,
there's actually no support internally within that school for someone who is coming out,
yeah,
then
yeah,
I
yeah,
think you're not really practicing what you preach.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I think
yeah, yeah. You
it's
just, yeah.
oh, sorry, what were you saying?
No, no, please.
Um, so yeah, it's education is great, but then schools in particular, they're also an environment that's where kids are learning to socialize.
Yeah,
They are, they're growing up within a system. So
yeah,
having something in place where there's obvious support for people who feel like they're going to struggle or they are a little bit different. It's
yeah,
education, and it's also just putting things in place, whether that's a club that people can go to, or
yeah,
having a designated teacher that someone can talk to if they are struggling a little bit.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
it,
yeah,
I'm all for bringing speakers into schools, because that's where you get the personal experience side of
yeah,
things. But
yeah,
I think it is, as much as possible, make sure that school is supportive all year round for people who maybe don't fit the mold.
yeah, yeah. I think not even with educational system agent. I think it's with the organizations, companies. I think it's more of a tick box. Say, hey, we are we should come across as advanced,
Oh yeah.
and then actually feeling for the cause. And because I'm a marketing personnel, and I'll so what happens is I see this thing, brands
Hmm.
who are doing it like who are and it actually, pisses me off.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
because
I know what you're gonna say. Yeah,
yeah, because it's like, they you are basically giving this, discount, pride discount, when you have
yeah.
nothing to do with the cause. You
No,
don't understand the cause.
you're just trying to
You
drive sales.
Yeah, there is nothing in your organization that says that, hey, we are inclusive, we
Yeah,
support, but when it comes to Pride Month, let's cash in. You
yeah.
know,
It's a marketing ploy, isn't it?
yeah, I hate that.
Yeah,
I hate
me
that.
too.
And there was a company, I wouldn't, want to name it. I
Yeah.
used to work, and they used to do this, every Pride Month.
Okay.
And it used, of course, I was an employee, so I had to do this,
Yeah,
but it used to rub me the wrong way.
yeah,
And I used to, in my own, way, I used to, tell them that, hey, if you really want to, if you, really want to basically, make the discount and all that, please, contribute to the community, you
yeah.
know so, sponsor some event,
Yes.
just, make
Yeah.
it align. What the hell are you doing?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Good on you for saying something, because I think there's probably so many companies that do that. You
yeah,
know, it
yeah,
might be an awful place to work if you're, maybe a gay person, but
yeah,
come Pride Month, they'll stick a
yeah,
flag on there, and
yeah,
they want to come across as progressive because more and more people care about that these
yeah,
days.
yeah, yeah,
Whether that's someone who's going to buy their product who wants to work for them,
yeah, yeah.
so they want to cash in on that.
Yeah. But the thing is, Aiden, that, companies, who basically mindlessly, basically release these sales, they are not going to hire somebody, from LGBTQ, BTQ plus, because they do not understand the cause.
Yeah,
They are just, too uncomfortable, because if you were, you wouldn't be, releasing these, what discounts just to cash in.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I
So,
think, or if someone does slip through the net and gets into that organization, how's that going to feel for them?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
it's sad because it's you can almost tell when a company's doing an awareness month
yeah,
code or graphic or something because they've just had it in the content
yeah,
calendar.
yeah,
You're like,
yeah,
shit, we need to get something out for this, but
yeah,
it's the
yeah,
whole point of things like Pride Month aren't to they're not to put a
yeah,
big flash sale on there. They're to
yeah,
push
yeah,
education. They're to make it, to show people it's an opportunity to talk about things, to show people what you're doing that is genuinely beneficial for a
yeah,
community. And
yeah,
I
yeah.
think it's that
Yeah,
just gets lost quite a
yeah,
lot,
yeah,
really.
yeah. And I think it is okay, if you do not, understand about a cause, if you do not,
Yeah,
feel deeply about a cause, there is, I mean, it is okay, not to, basically, market it.
yeah,
Because I think, you not understanding and doing it
mm,
actually, is doing you more harm.
for sure. If
Yes.
you're really committed to doing it, then maybe do the education part of things. But
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
you actually don't you just don't need to. You don't
yeah.
need to. I think it kind of it shows a little bit of desperation that you're really just trying to it's opportunism, I suppose.
Opportunism. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Rainbow washing. Yeah, yeah, rainbow
rainbow
washing.
washing, exactly,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, so I think we're seeing less companies rainbow washing.
Yeah, now, yeah, because of
Yeah,
the people, consumer is getting it smarter.
yeah, yeah, people are starting to realize sort of what that's about and what that's for.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, what the fuck are you talking about? Like,
Yeah, literally, do you know
it's
what
like,
you're talking about? Because I
yeah,
don't think you do.
yeah. So yeah, because yeah, consumer is getting it smarter, so they're like, okay, we'll steer clear. If you
Yeah,
do not,
exactly. And
understand it.
people will, as much as, I've spoken about, like,
Yeah,
the more hostile parts of the population,
yeah,
more and more people
yeah.
care. More and
Okay.
more people care, and they are I do research for when I speak in companies and stuff as well, I do research into
Yeah,
basically there are more people than ever who will turn down a job if that company does not align with their
yeah.
values,
Their
if they
values.
are
Yeah,
not an inclusive company. And it's the
yeah,
same for consumers
yeah,
buying new products.
yeah,
There are
yeah,
so many choices out there now that
yeah.
if you're putting a badge on something but you don't actually practice what you preach, people are going to be wise to it and they're going to go elsewhere.
Yeah, yeah. People can smell the bullshit,
Yeah, they can.
from miles away now.
You can't
Yeah,
patronize your consumers because
yeah, yeah,
there's a whole internet out there and
yeah,
it's easy to dig stuff up.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah. Yeah. Like I told you, the company that I used to, who used to do this thing, and used to completely piss me off.
yeah,
So,
it is right though. is right, and too many companies do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah, it's just, the idea of, sounding cool
well,
or,
exactly.
progressive, that is, where
Or
they do the harm. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, exactly. You're
Yeah.
not doing anything that's benefiting anyone but your own bottom
Yeah.
line. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
I think yeah, I think the meaning of Pride Month, Awareness Month, and things they just get very lost on a lot of
Yeah.
people. It's like when people say, "Well, why isn't there a straight Pride March?" Well, it's
Yeah.
that's not it, that
Yeah. Yeah.
that's not the point.
Yeah.
It's not to
Yeah.
celebrate every single different demographic.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's to
Yeah.
support a community that needs
Yeah.
lifting up.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so
And actually, because, like you said that, most of the things, happen during Pride Month, and I contacted you during the Pride Month because I know people, in my, of course, in my friend circle, who are gays. But the thing is, this, we are on a friendly level, close friends. So we never, what do you call, we never needed to ask because, yeah,
yeah,
like, okay, he's a friend,
yeah,
so okay,
just there. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, okay, it doesn't matter whoever he chooses to be with, but never, trying to, because he's a friend. So okay, so today, okay, so now you're gay, it's okay, it's like that. But actually, this was the topic that, like I told you, my experience, with the one of the firms that I used to work with. And I think the idea, of course, I am going to take the full responsibility that, why even, this idea, came on my mind during
yeah,
the Pride Month,
yeah.
because why I wasn't thinking about it through, I mean, yeah, like, I'm blaming, we are talking about, but the company. So I think, I will, take a little bit of responsibility.
But you've
You know,
got that
public,
awareness. You've
yeah,
taken something from that, and you've
yeah,
learned from
yeah,
what that felt
yeah,
like. So
yeah.
I don't think that's a bad
Mhm.
thing.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, I need to educate myself because,
Yeah.
this is something I think that I know,
Mhm.
but I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't know
And
you can't know
yeah,
it all,
yeah,
and I think that's partly that's also the point of Pride Month. I don't want people to be scared of
yeah,
doing things during Pride Month for fear of looking like they are being opportunistic, because
yeah,
the
yeah,
whole the point of Pride Month is
yeah,
to talk about the community.
yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
to have that awareness. So I don't
Yeah.
think it's a bad thing.
Well,
Um,
thank you for understanding that.
yeah.
Okay, so how do you, because you educate, at schools about,
Mhm,
LGBTQ plus community, and
mhm,
basically how, to basically deal with these situations and how to be inclusive about, other communities. So how do you approach educating straight children or even adults on,
mhm,
how to be better allies?
yeah. I think so. A big part of the way I try and approach, um, particularly in schools, so a big part of how I try and approach it is it's not just about being trans.
Yeah,
It's about the importance of being inclusive on one side of things. It's why you should care about being inclusive. It's why it will
yeah,
be beneficial
yeah,
for you in later life.
yeah,
Um, but also, it's about being proud of yourself no matter who you are.
yeah,
There might be people in that room who are LGBTQ plus and don't know it at that time, but if
yeah,
they learn before they get to that realization that they can be proud of themselves, and that's
yeah,
just going to
yeah,
save a whole heap of time.
yeah, yeah,
Um, I try and I try and approach it in a way that is relevant for everyone in the room, because it is relevant for everyone in the room. And that can
yeah,
be really difficult because it's such a polarized topic at
yeah,
the moment. There are people who are feeling different, and there are people who hate the fact that there are people who are different.
yeah,
So trying to get that balance right is quite difficult. Um,
yeah, 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 yeah,
so I'll in a 1 hour session, I'll cover, the my story, and then the amazing
yeah,
things I've gained from being, out and being trans, and being fully myself. And then I'll talk as well about the consequences
yeah,
not being an inclusive person, and it can go,
yeah, yeah,
there are quite different levels to it, because how do you have such a big conversation with two such extreme ends of it
ends
in
of
one
it.
room where you don't really know? And
Yeah,
it's similar for workplaces as well. It's
yeah,
by that point, I'm assuming they kind of know that, they have to have a level of professionalism even if they don't like it.
yeah, yeah,
Um, but it's it's letting anyone in that room know, okay, A, this is a safe space,
Yeah.
no matter who you are, but also no
Yeah.
matter how much learning you need to do.
Yeah.
And it's letting them know that actually you do need to care about this. You might not want to, but
Yeah.
it's beneficial for you as a business professional for
Yeah.
this reason, and this reason. It's
Yeah.
beneficial for the people around you. It
Yeah.
is going to make your life a lot easier because you're not going to you're not going
Yeah.
to spend
Yeah.
half your life angry.
Yeah.
Uh, so
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
it's a difficult balance to strike
Yeah.
a lot
Yeah.
of the time, but it's
Yeah.
one where I I think covering both sides of it, you can't pretend that everyone in the room wants to be there. You
Wants to
can't
be.
pretend
Yeah.
that they want to learn, so you have
Yeah.
to kind of give them a let them know what the reason is that they have to learn.
Yeah. I like that part where you do have an understanding that not everybody wants to be in that room,
Mhm.
because more often than not they are not ready, they are being forced to by organizations, by schools. But you make sure that okay, you need to listen, that why is it important
Yeah.
for you, because you can't be angry
No.
throughout your life. It is just going to harm you. Yeah, there's
Yeah,
no
it is.
positive side to it.
No, no, exactly. The
Yeah.
only well, it's not the only person, but that
Yeah.
well as hurting the people around you, it's hurting yourself, you don't
Yeah.
need to go through your life feeling like that
Yeah.
when you could you could have a wider circle
Yeah.
of friends, you could learn something about a person that helps you learn something about
Yeah.
yourself, there
Yeah.
are so our lives are so small compared to what goes on in the wider world, like, the world's
Yeah.
massive, there are so
Yeah.
many people, so
Yeah.
why would you want to close your experiences of the world off just to what you know?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just so limiting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
True. True.
yeah.
Wow. Yeah. That is, yeah. That is a great thing to, say that, yeah, why to basically, yeah, have this, hatred, throughout, for the rest of your life. And also, we need to, yeah, because there are, some topics, I believe that it is good that they are being forced,
Mhm.
to have this conversation, because these are important conversations. You need to be aware, you need to get educated, you need to do better in your life, you
Yeah,
need to show up better. So it is good that they are being forced.
ex
Some things are good when they are being
yeah,
forced.
yeah.
Yes.
It's not like I'm getting everyone into a room and forcing them to,
Yeah.
take hormone shots, like,
Yeah.
that's not what it is, but,
Yeah.
you're forcing people to have a conversation about this is
Yeah.
actually what the real world is like, and you can either care about it because it's gonna make your life easier and it's the right
Yeah.
thing to do, or
Yeah.
you can ignore everything I'm saying and, make your life harder, but
Yeah.
I'm
True.
hoping that not many people choose that option.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's difficult.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah,
yeah, people, would want to just a human, take the easier route.
yeah.
Also, yeah. So what advisory you would give to schools and organizations
Mhm.
who are basically just scared of getting it wrong? What advice would you give? Because like I said, that the fear is there.
It is there, yeah.
Yeah.
And I see that fear in a lot of, people in a lot of different settings,
Yeah. Yeah.
like you said, people mean well, but they're scared of getting it wrong. I think when it comes to schools and organizations, my advice would be just try. If you know it's the right thing,
Try.
if it's the right thing for you've got a school full of however many hundreds of pupils,
Yeah.
it's the right thing for those pupils, they're gonna go up and they're the next generation, then
Yeah.
you've got to try something, and you don't always have to do it just off your own back.
Yeah.
There are there's a lot of ways you can educate yourself online. There are people like me who will go in and tell their stories
Yeah.
to younger people. There are support
Yeah.
networks that you can try.
Yeah.
You don't have to just suddenly try something that you don't know works. It's that
Yeah. Yeah.
there are
Yeah.
options for you. If you
Yeah.
know it's the right thing to do, then I think you kind of have a responsibility as a business leader or as a head teacher.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and it doesn't have to be all rainbows all year round, but
Yeah.
making sure that, for example, there's something in the PSHE curriculum
Yeah.
that is covered, uh, however regularly, maybe every couple of months or something. It's a consistent touch point throughout their school career, and One of the ways actually the organization that I work for, one of the
Yeah.
things that they have implemented since I started is me and a guy called Loti. He's also a diversity ambassador for the company, and he talks on anti-racism.
Yeah.
Um, and we deliver in diversity inductions to every single new starter,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
and we relate it to the industry that they're in. But
Yeah. Yeah.
again, it's a way of bringing them into the business
Yeah.
using that lived experience and that knowledge that you have internally, and using that to get people started on the right foot.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't have to suddenly know everything and become an educational beacon yourself if you actually don't have
Mhm,
what you're
mhm.
talking about. But
Yeah.
there will
Yeah.
be either people or resources that you can lean on that help set a precedent.
Yeah.
Now everyone comes into the company and they understand that inclusivity is important in that environment, and they understand how to be more inclusive in what they do every day
Yeah.
and why they should care.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you've just got to give it a go, and it's not rocket science. Like there are things that
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
do, and there are people who can support you in doing that. So try not to worry too much about it because it's not all on you.
That's I think that is something yeah, that's a great thing to say, and I 100% agree
Mhm.
that if you genuinely feel about it, of course, try and educating yourself, but it is okay that you're not going to get it right.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. I'm a
Mm.
big believer in that, you know?
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
think people should feel the need to get it right all the time. I think
Yeah.
we spoke earlier, a
Yeah.
little bit about the fact
Yeah.
that, we worried about asking certain questions for fear of how it
Yeah.
comes across, like, it's and people have different reactions, so I understand that, and,
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
is, the idea of cancel culture and things like that, but I'll say this for, both parties. It's okay that people don't know. If someone comes to you with a question, so if you're a trans person, or
Yeah.
you're, um, a person of color, a person with a disability, whatever it is, if
Yeah.
someone comes to you with a question, you
Yeah.
have to try and understand what their intention
Yeah.
is, because
Yeah.
if they're doing it to try and make you feel small or make you feel bad, then yes, you can have a negative reaction. That's
Yeah.
completely valid and fair.
Yeah.
If someone comes to you with a very well-meaning question and
Yeah.
is actually a bit inappropriate,
Uh, yeah. Yeah.
especially when you're trans, people will ask you some quite personal questions that they
Yeah.
wouldn't dream of asking anyone else, but it's
Yeah.
just curiosity.
Yeah.
They they they're trying to educate themselves, and they're not going to learn unless you explain to them.
Yeah.
Um, and
Yeah.
I know it's a lot of responsibility to put on a person who's already going through something. But
Yeah.
like I said earlier, I'm very much a believer in you can ask me anything, and I will tell you why I do not want to answer a question.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think intention is such an important thing to understand. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
People are going to get it wrong. I will have said things that I wouldn't dream of saying now before I realized I was trans.
Yeah.
It's stuff
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
this whole idea of unconscious bias. You're brought
Yeah.
up in an environment which, yeah,
Yeah.
maybe you do realize you're different from that environment later down the line, but you've
Yes.
learned from that environment.
Yeah.
You've learned from the people what's normal and what's not, and so that gets built into your brain. It's just the way
Yeah.
it is. So
Yeah.
the way that we can overcome that is by having open dialogue and having conversations like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you're a person who,
Yeah.
you're kind of different to everyone else in your environment, or to most people in your environment,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a lot of responsibility. But if you're willing to,
Yeah.
even if you just signpost people, and you're like,
Yeah.
there's this website that
Yeah.
I don't want to answer any questions. I find it deeply uncomfortable, but actually there's this website you can go to, and
You
that's
can
got
do.
loads of answers for you.
Yeah.
That there are things that we can do to
Yeah.
bring up that education,
Yeah.
and just
Yeah.
conversation, I think, is just like
Yeah.
the key.
Yeah. I think one point that you said, I really believe in that point where you said that, you know, uh, it's the intention that matters. And as human beings, we can actually pick up on intentions, whether the question
Yeah.
is being asked with a good intention
Yeah,
or with the bad intention.
exactly.
So as long as the intention is good,
Mhm.
you wouldn't mind, answering the question.
Yeah,
You know, because that okay, the person is less aware, but
yeah.
he means well. He is just,
Exactly.
trying to
He's trying
understand, trying to
he's
learn.
trying, but I think this is a big problem with social media and stuff, is we're moving further and further away from that.
Yeah.
Someone will
Yeah.
write a quote on a platform, whether it's Twitter or X or Instagram or TikTok, whatever
Yeah.
it is,
Yeah.
and people will jump on it and be like, "I can't believe you said this. You said this." You've
Yeah.
taken a quote that's completely out of context
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
actually might not have anything to do with what you think. They might have said, "I love this particular thing," and everyone's like, "Oh, well, does that mean that you hate this other thing?"
Yeah.
That's not how this works. And again, that's like a big blanket statement, but I do see it happening on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think we as a society, as people, need to give people like cut people a little bit of slack. Um,
Absolutely. Yeah.
and we need to stop trying to like catch people out, because actually
Yeah.
the only person that's benefiting is yourself for a split second, because you feel like you're a little bit better than that person. And
Yeah.
that is not the point in any of this.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that is true. I think we live in such a hypersensitive
Yeah.
social media world. I don't know. I think, some people get up every day and they decide that today I'm going to get offended
Yeah.
by, by something, by anything. And that is what do they decide, they get up and they decide, what should I be offended about today on social media? I think, yeah, that is the only goal that they have.